Hey, I'm Nikki Leonti and welcome to Start Your Own Family Daycare TV. This quick episode is all about whether you should fire your scheme. Now, if you haven't started family daycare yet, this video is still very applicable because I'm going to go through some of the key elements you should be asking before you hire a scheme, or some of the things you should be assessing of your existing scheme and whether you need to really get rid of them and move to a better, more supportive scheme. Now, there's a lot that has changed in the family daycare industry over the last few years. And one of the key things is that the funding for most of the schemes from the government was cut, which meant that a lot of schemes had to really increase their fees in order to make it viable for them to offer support and continue to run as a business. So with the cutting of the funding and the increase of the fees for educators, I've also noticed a significant decline in the support that is actually offered by schemes because they just don't have the staff anymore to be able to support their educators as much as they say they're going to when they're initially open. So I have a checklist which you can download. Just follow the link below the video and you can download this checklist, which I suggest you print off and go through if you are just looking at which scheme to go with initially, or whether you're looking at assessing your existing scheme. So the first thing is this checklist goes through finding out what their scheme is, details, etc., working out what their educator levy is, what their family levy is. That can sometimes be separate. Some schemes have just one levy per hour or per week that they charge. So you want to work out what their levies are. Now, if you're just starting out, or if you've still been doing it for a little while, I really want you to think about what the actual costs are. So some schemes charge a per hour per child levy, and some charge a weekly levy. Now, if you're full with 4 children every day, 5 or 6 or 7 days a week, you want to go with that weekly levy because it tends to work out a bit cheaper. But if you are not if you've got a couple of your own children at home with you, so you can only take 2 or 3 children in a day and you're only open, say, 3 days a week, doing a weekly levy is going to cost you more generally. So I want you to think about what your existing position is and also what those levies are and how does that work out, what would be a better kind of levy for you to be paying. The next thing you might want to think about is whether your scheme charges a family registration or administration fee, because some don't, some childcare centres don't. This could be kind of a competitive factor. If your scheme does charge an enrolment fee, that can stop some families from joining up because they kind of think, well, why am I paying that $30 or $50 when this one's not charging me that? So that could be to your detriment. However, if your scheme does charge that and you really like the scheme, then I wouldn't move or not go with them just because of that fee. There are ways around it, such as offering them, a lunchbox and drink bottle pack when they sign up, for example, if you know they're going to be being charged that enrolment fee. Yes, it's coming out of your pocket, but you're still getting that enrolment and you're kind of overcoming that small hurdle of parents having to pay an upfront fee before care's even begun. Other things you want to look at, so we're still sticking with costs associated with a particular scheme, looking at what compulsory software that educators must have. Now, some schemes do make you have HubWorks or Harmony or another kind of accounting software that allows them to, it makes it all much simpler, to be honest, but some of those can cost you a couple of $100 every year. So you want to look at whether you want to be paying that, whether that's in your skill set to be using one of those programs. A good scheme will actually be teaching you how to use that software. So again, look into whether that's something you'd be interested in. To be honest, using a software platform instead of doing paper-based invoicing and all of that stuff has for me been so much easier. So it's kind of a good thing. The next thing you want to think about is what their water play policy is. So is there no water play at all allowed? Are they, do they allow sprinkler play? Are you allowed up to 30 centimeters of water fully supervised in play? You know, things like that. Think about what their water policy is, and does that impact you? Does that affect you? For me, being in Queensland, we want to play with water, so I want to make sure that whatever scheme I'm with does allow water, and they do. You want to look at their child ratio policy. So some schemes, obviously there's the legislation you can have 4 under school age and 3 school age, up to 7 children, and you know, this includes your own children. But I want you to ask the scheme whether that includes your own children who may be going to kindy or any kind of preschool program during the day. Does that allow you to have an extra child during the day at home? Some schemes won't allow it, some schemes do. Some schemes won't allow it because they believe, well, what if your child's sick? Then you're going to have to call out and cancel another care. My argument is that if my child's sick, I won't be caring for anyone anyway. So all these things, but I want you to think about that and ask that question. What happens if my child goes to kindy or preschool for part of the week? Can I have that extra child? You want to ask them how timesheets are submitted as well, because that's a big one. Do you have to go, and I've heard of people physically having to drive and hand their timesheets in or post them off. I've always just photographed them and scanned them in, and that's so easy because I can do that at the end of each day. So you want to find out what their process is and whether that's suitable for you as well. You want to ask them how many home visits you receive and over a year, or, you know, especially starting up. It should be around every month. There are legislations on this, and you want to make sure that they are, when they come, they're not making you feel useless. They should be empowering you, inspiring you, and wanting to help you be a better educator. Not just saying, I don't like that, there's plastic bag there in your kitchen that's already been locked away, but they don't want plastic bags anywhere. All these issues that, again, I have heard stories. So you want to ask them how often they'll be coming around and what kind of support they can offer you. And finally, one of the things you could ask is, what kind of resources do they have available? Now, with the funding cut, most schemes have nothing available. They don't have car seats to help you, they don't have cots, they don't have high chairs, none of those things. So you need to ask them, what do they actually have available? And don't be surprised if they say they don't actually have anything that can be hired out. But as long as they're supporting you, then that is definitely a bonus. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to download the handout, go through that, look at how you feel you are getting supported by your existing scheme, or what kind of scheme you might want to enroll with. All right, don't forget to come and chat with me on Facebook. I'll put a link below the video. I'd love to hear what scheme you're with or why you love them, or if you're thinking that you might want to change, feel free to ask what other schemes are in your area. You can do that anonymously by posting to me, and then I will send that out. All right, I hope you have an amazing week. Thanks.